Hello everyone, and welcome to our third new video in our series for drama. Today we're going to unpack more about the play of Julius Caesar, diving into not only the background of ancient Rome, and in particular their political structure, as we're going to see that it's crucial to understanding the central conflict of the play, but also into the man Julius Caesar himself, and understanding that he is not a figment of Shakespeare's imagination, but in fact a real-life historical figure. So the first thing we're going to do then, as we begin to build background information on the tragedy of Julius Caesar, is understanding what Roman life was like back then and how its political system worked. So the first thing we need to know in understanding Roman politics is that their citizens are divided into two central groups. The first being patricians, and patricians would have been at the top of the hierarchy here. So if we think about a hierarchy as a triangle, this top section of the triangle then would be reserved for the upper class, i.e. the patricians. Then, logically speaking, in our lower class, that second half of the hierarchical triangle, we have the plebeians. And these would have been people who were of the lower class. We then look at how these citizens are placed into a system of government, and we see that their system of government is going to be divided into three central parts. And the first part is going to be called the triumvirs, and these would be a group of three individuals, always men, by the way, who would share power as a threesome. The next group that we would have them immediately underneath the triumvirs, known as a group as a triumvirate, would be the senators. And these would have been the ruling body of people, of men. And they would have power, but definitely not as much power as the triumvirate members. And as we begin to see Caesar taking the role of dictator in ancient Rome, we also see that they are subject to his power as well. Additionally, we see that senators are responsible for upholding the rights specifically of the nobility and the landowners. So looking at our division of citizens, senators would have upheld the rights of the patricians. And usually the Senate, the place where the senators would meet, would be housed of 300 individuals, so 300 senators. The last group then we have in their system of government are called the tribunes. And again, we're going in order of hierarchy. So if triumvirs are on the top, senators come after them, the tribunes are at the very bottom of this government hierarchy. And we see that they have the most limited use of power, and they also represent the common people, so the plebeians. So if the patricians are represented by the senators, then plebeians would be represented by the tribunes. And back then, Rome was divided into these groups of legions, so these sections within ancient Rome. And they had roughly 6 at the time period that we're talking about, 50 AD. And we're going to see that each legion then is able to represent or to elect 4 of these tribunes, so around 24 tribunes in all. And this is important to point out because we're going to see how people really are represented in government, right? You should notice automatically a huge disparity between how many people represent the patricians, the upper class, which is around 300, and then how many people subsequently represent the plebeians, the lower class, which is only 24 people. And I want to make this clear as we get into building up the hierarchy of government here. Again, we have our triumvirate at the top. So you would have had 3 male Romans, citizens of Rome, okay? And they would have held the greatest amount of power, and they were supposed to work together. Caesar originally is part of the first triumvirate of ancient Rome. Underneath them, then we have the senators, okay, who would have again represented the rights of the patricians. Finally, we have the tribunes, who again, they are underneath the senators and they represent the plebeians, so the lower class individuals. And as we're going lower on this triangle, you should notice that the space of the triangle gets larger, and that is to, in some sense, indicate the amount of people that fell into that group. So when we come to looking at the plebeians then, those who make up the very base of Roman society, they are by far the largest population, but they receive less representation in terms of government. So as we enter here into the tragedy of Julius Caesar, there's going to be a huge issue of power struggle, an issue that is underlined by the fact that the lowest in society receive the least amount of representation. We're then going to dive into the background of Julius Caesar. And first, I want to emphasize the fact that he is a historical figure. So again, he is not someone who did not exist. There is a plethora of historical documents that support his existence. He is known as a Roman general as well as politician. Remember, he's part of that first triumvirate, along with Pompey and Cassius, figures that I'll get into in a moment. And he was a massively successful military leader. So think in the realms of Alexander the Great. He is able to expand the ancient Roman Empire by far more than when he began power, right? So during his reign, he conquers Gaul, which is modern-day France and Belgium. And he even extends Roman rule all the way into modern-day Britain and then later into Egypt. So as Caesar is proving himself as this massive military leader, the other members of the triumvirate, so Pompey and Cassius, along with the senators underneath them, begin to fear that Caesar will take too much power. And so they order Caesar to disband his army. So back then, these political leaders, military leaders, would have armies that fought specifically for them. So obviously, Caesar is doing a great job, sees no reason why he should stop, and refuses to disband his army. And this is going to lead to a massive civil war in ancient Rome. So Caesar essentially says, I'm not disbanding my army. If you don't like it, come and do something about it. So Caesar marches his army to Italy, where he fights Pompey, that second member in the triumvirate. And this is a widespread battle that takes over ancient Rome and ultimately ends with Caesar's victory. And this is where we're going to see the beginning of the tragedy of Julius Caesar begin. Caesar marching back into Rome victorious over Pompey. And here I've included a painting as well. And Caesar, this central figure in the middle wearing this red cloth around him, he is being presented with the head of Pompey. So right, a sign of his victory and his military power and might. And the last thing I want to get into today in our video is introducing to you the central characters that are going to be important in our reading of the tragedy of Julius Caesar. I really want to emphasize that you should be using the worksheet that came along with this video, because you're going to see that a lot of these characters not only have similar names, but there are a good many of them. So it's a really good idea to make sure that you are tracking with who is who and how they are all related to Caesar. So I'm going to go figure by figure here, and you'll see that I'm going to circle the figure I'm talking about. So we're going to begin first with Julius Caesar. So I've already introduced him to you, but as the play begins, we see that Caesar has been elected, or rather elects himself, the emperor of Rome. And this is going to be the central conflict that he has to deal with, right? Because he elects himself as this great and mighty ruler, but he's not very wanted by many of the other members of government. The next figure we're going to focus on then is Cassius. And remember, he is the second member of this first triumvirate that's made up of Caesar, Cassius, and Pompey. And as the play opens, Cassius is well aware that Caesar has already defeated Pompey. And so he appears to step down, right? He's the only other member of the triumvirate left. So in essence, he's saving his skin. But he is going to be the key figure working behind the scenes to make sure that Caesar is put to death. The next figure we have is Brutus, and Brutus is part of the Roman Senate, so he is a senator, right? The level of power right underneath the triumvirate. And Although initially he is a good friend to Caesar, we're going to see that they have a very good relationship with one another. Brutus, by means of Cassius, is made aware of the power that Caesar has and the danger that comes with it. So he is going to end up working with Cassius to bring about the downfall of Caesar. Then we have Mark Antony, who is really one of the only loyal characters in the entire play. He is a loyal friend to Caesar, and he is going to be key in making sure that those who bring about the downfall of Caesar are eventually, in the end, defeated. Then we have Portia. She is the wife of Brutus and one of only 2 female characters in the entire play. And by extension, she is also going to be one of the voices of reason in the play. And we're going to notice that Portia, along with Calpurnia, who's listed above her, the wife of Caesar, are going to try to put a stop to the conspiracy and try to warn their respective husbands about the danger of what they're doing. But unfortunately, in Roman society, as I'm sure all of you or most of you are aware of, women were not held in high regard. So their warnings fall on deaf ears. We're then introduced to lesser characters in the play, not because they are lesser in terms of their status necessarily, but because they do not play central or very large roles in the play. And first we have the soothsayer, and he is going to appear very early on in the play, and he is going to warn Caesar about the Ides of March. And this is going to be a phrase that is constantly repeated throughout the play, and it's going to be this reference of this ominous tide of the conspiracy to come. So the soothsayer is trying to warn Julius Caesar to beware the Ides of March, the day on which the conspiracy is going to take place. We then have Cinna, and here I want you to be careful. There are 2 Cinnas in Julius Caesar. The first Cinna we're talking about is a poet who unfortunately is fatally confused with Cinna the conspirator. So we're going to see what happens to him in this fatal mix-up. And then finally, the last set of characters I'm going to hold you responsible for now are the ones circled here. All of these are conspirators against Julius Caesar, so they are going to be plotting with Cassius and Brutus to bring about the downfall of Caesar. And I'm just going to run through their names quickly to pronounce them so that we can start getting used to the way their names sound. So first we have Casca, then Decius Brutus, okay, not to be confused with the Brutus above. Then we have Cinna, Metellus Cimber, Trebonius, and Caius Ligarius. And these are going to be our group of conspirators who help to bring about the downfall of Caesar. That's it for our video today. In a brief preview for our video for tomorrow, we're going to begin reading Julius Caesar, Act 1, Scene 1. So you're going to see in the video structures, as we begin to read through the play itself, I'm going to do my best to read through the entire scene that we're doing. Okay? I'll either attach that in the same video or I'll make it a different video just so that you have the advantage of getting to listen to the way that it sounds. Then we're going to jump through and analyze key sections of text, not only to understand on a comprehension level what's going on, but also to understand the different motives of the characters and how this theme of grasping for power is ultimately going to bring about the downfall of everyone involved, and looking particularly to find our tragic hero. Additionally, as we begin to move into working through the scenes of the play, I'm going to assign reading worksheets that will be in addition to the regular note-taking that you should be doing. And you can think of it almost like a mini quiz every time we finish an act. So I'm going to upload a sample either today or tomorrow just so you can familiarize yourself with it. But the way this will work is as we go through looking at scenes together, scenes are broken down into acts. So you can think of an act as a chapter and scenes simply as being the pages within that chapter. So once we finish an act, any scenes that I've given you worksheets for underneath that act, you will need to turn in the following day that we finish. So, for example, let's say, this is just an example, we finish Act 1 on April 22nd. That will mean any of the worksheets that I've given you for the scenes within Act 1 only will be due to me by email on April 23rd. And I'm doing this to help you better understand the play, and also so I can look through and really check and see, one, are you watching the videos? And two, are you understanding what we're watching? Okay, so the worksheets are not going to be complicated and they're not going to be made out to trick you. It's just to make sure that you're following along with me and also giving you credit for the work that you're doing. Additionally, and last announcement for today, I had posted in one of my previous videos that we would have a poetry quiz on April 10th. As that is the day we are supposed to begin our Easter break, I'm going to cancel that quiz entirely. So you won't have any more assignments due before the Easter break, just 2 more videos to watch. Okay? Thanks, and I'll see you in our video tomorrow.